Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of EL Speed Shop. Today we're working on a friend of mine's 2006 Ford Mustang 4.0 V6 automatic. Complaining of real bad vibration at stopped while in gear. Not so bad when it's in park or neutral. I've done a good bit of checking out already. Checked my motor mounts, checked transmission mount, did some readings, saw apparently there can be some weird vibrations with the exhaust, either the exhaust piping itself vibrating or some of the heat shielding, especially around the catalytic converters, being loose and vibrating. Didn't see any issues like that. Hooked it up to the scanner. Didn't see any issues or weirdness with idle air control, throttle position, throttle valve. Nothing that looks like a vacuum leak. He just recently bought this car within the last few months and did some more looking just for giggles, checking spark plugs. There were a few random misfires, but nothing consistent, checking spark plugs. And I pulled the first and the third one out on the driver's side, and I found out that the front one was a copper motorcraft plug, and the rear one was a platinum NGK plug. So I am going to do a little bit of a tune-up, change the plugs, see how many other kinds of spark plugs there are, and kind of show you a quick tune-up. Yeah, it's a generic car, but you might learn a few things. But first, I'm going to fire this thing up just for a second and let y'all hear, hopefully, what it's doing. So, let me get in the seat, key in. As you can hear, it's a V6, so it's a little buzzy, but not terrible. But put it in dry, or this is actually reversed. You hear it loads down a little bit. RPMs are still good, so I don't think it's idle air control. And it's just, you hear things vibrating. That's neutral. And then when you put it in drive, it gets even worse. So, for lack of anything else and the fact that it needs spark plugs, we're going to put plugs in it. So, put it in park, shut her off, and be back in a second in the engine compartment. Alright, here we go. I'm going to start at the front of the drivers and pull these out. These take a 5/8 spark plug socket. And a little bit hard to see, they kind of hide in there, but the space to get to everything is not terrible. Doesn't look like I'm going to have to pull a bunch of stuff apart to get it going. At least that's what I hope. And this car's got about 175,000 miles on it. Doing a reading, apparently the vibration park and idle is a fairly common issue with these V6 Mustangs, but looking at forums and stuff, couldn't find anybody that really fixed it. A bunch of just random things, so we'll see what it actually is, and hopefully a quick little tune-up will get them back going. First, Motorcraft copper plug, and we're replacing these with Autolite Platinums. Should do a little bit better job. When you're changing spark plugs, you want to be sure that you don't cross thread them, especially aluminum heads. So make sure that you've got them good and threaded in before you go to your ratchet. Typically spark plug wrench and extension works pretty well. If you can't get your hands on it, hands are best. Another trick you can use is get you a piece of 5/16 or 3/8 fuel line. Cut it whatever length you need, 6 inches, foot, whatever, and push it over the end of the spark plug, and you can use that to thread in. It gives pretty light pressure. When it starts to slip, you know you're good. We'll see how this does with just the little ratchet. And you want your to snug your spark plugs, but you don't want to bear down on them super hard because aluminum. So just a good snug 20 foot-pounds or so is typically adequate. And if your spark plug boots don't want to come off, one little trick I found, especially on like LS style engines where you have the heat shield and everything and it's hard to get a good grip on your spark plug, just take it and twist the spark plug just a little bit, and then typically that frees it up enough to where you can pull it off without having to fight with it too much and try and put pliers on it and mess things up. And spark plug should be a pretty quick little job. Get them in, see if it runs any smoother, and go from there. The throttle body is a little bit greasy, not terrible, so might try and clean that up a little bit, but we'll see how it is. He doesn't want to spend just a whole lot of money on the thing, but he wants it fixed if possible. So number one was a spark plug, or a Motorcraft copper. Looks like number two is the same. They're not terrible, but they are getting a little crusty. So, and with mismatched plugs, you could have a little bit of a unequal cylinder contribution. One is firing more efficiently, getting more power out of it than others, and that can cause a bit of a vibration, especially if your motor mounts are weak, but that doesn't look to be the case with this. You can test your motor mounts. If you can see through the hood, that's good. If not, get somebody you trust to get in the car, foot hard on the brake, put it in reverse and give it a little bit of gas. And if your motor mounts are weak or torn, you'll see the motor rock violently or quickly, however you want to say it, to one direction. Put it in drive, and you can use that to see which side motor mount is bad, if at all. Typically with something like motor mounts, you want to do both of them at the same time, and then you can also see if the motor kicks up or down in the front, and that'll give you a little bit of an indication about your transmission mount. And there's lots of different methods and schools of thought on how to do your plugs. Most of the time, especially with something that has spark plug leads, I like to just pull one off, replace it, and then do the next one. That way, typically, you don't have to worry about getting your spark plug leads mixed up, crossed, whatever. And it can also help keep things from getting in the top end of your motor. Alright, and just like that, all the spark plugs are in. So I'm gonna pause y'all and hop inside and fire it up and see how it looks. Alright, we're back. Let's fire this bad boy up and see how she runs. My finger out of the shot. Well, seems better. So I think that's problem solved. Cool. Yep. There we go. This thing will have a little bit more work to do later. It needs some valve cover gaskets. They're starting to leak a little bit. But that should hopefully have it alive for now. I'm going to let this thing sit overnight, see if any more water shows up, and then go from there. I'll also grab a pressure tester tomorrow and try and pressure test this thing. So until then, like, subscribe, do all that YouTube stuff. If you want to follow me, I'm trying to post a little bit more on my Instagram at EL Speed Shop, And then I've also got a Facebook page that's sort of set up. Also EL's Speed Shop. So until next time, when we could be working on, let me flip y'all around again. Ooh, that was ugly. Let me flip y'all around again. Could be finally putting the motor in this thing. I could be trying to get this back on the road. I could be finishing up the suspension and checking everything over with the motor with this thing, because it's a fairly fresh motor. I need to check valve clearances and a few other things. Little generator over there. I've got to rebuild the carburetor and do a few other things to it, get it running in time for hurricane season, because it's got electric start and my wife doesn't like being without power. And over there, hiding through the trees and all the other junk, there's the old 47 Ford that I'd really like to make have it make some engine noises. So until next time, have a good one.